So, I've discovered the importance of documentation when it comes to your own projects, and that importance comes from, or stems from you being able to learn from your previous mistakes, and also are able to iterate, and then you can also look for lessons, also teach. So, that is my attempt right here, and I know I'm going to look back and cringe, but that's also part of the process. I'm also going to disagree with some of the ideas I currently hold, but it's important for me to at least get started in and then strive towards something, and then I'll go adapting my mental model in accordance to the new information I get. And another thing is, a ton of my thoughts are borrowed from other people, and I think we all do that. And so if you listen to people like Alex Hermosi, then you'll also hear some of their phrases and some of their words in the things I say as well. So I'm going to start off with the project description and the problem. So the very niche issue I had was when I pressed the notes down on a keyboard, the sustain pedal and the sustain pedal at the same time, I couldn't see the active notes being pressed while I was holding down on the pedal, right? So if I press the pedal and then also press the notes, it just looked like they were all pressed at the same time, and I couldn't see which one was actively being pressed, right? So if someone was tapping a note, it would just show it as being held down. So that was a small little thing on the software that I wanted to fix. So I made a program with Xcode and for the Mac. And now 2 to 3 years later, I saw that there was more to be done from software and music learning. So the way it works is you connect your piano through USB-B or MIDI, right? And then you connect that to your computer. And this current iteration, or how I'm doing it, is that it connects to the browser. Now, the important note is that it doesn't work for Safari because they're more privacy focused, and so it works with other Chromium browsers, but not that one. So, uh, I currently have hundreds of bullet points on my notes app for ideas on how to develop this project, and some of those ideas are using the Nashville number system, right, to train to for you to learn to play chords using just numbers. And that's important in a band or a group setting, right? Because then you don't have to worry about transposition. Another thing I am working towards, or I have the idea to implement, is having a key change trainer. So if you're going into a certain key, it'll help train you to know how to go into that key, and then I'll start off basic, and then as I go along, I'll discover the different ways to go about it. But for now, I know that it's supposed to be the sixth or the fifth note in the chord, right? In the key, to get you to change to the new key, right? And so having that, also having the idea of tracking your notes and having information on tracking each session or sessions, right? So I saw I don't know if it was an interview, but it was in regards to professional athletes. The World Cup just passed, but they were saying how right now nothing is left to chance, nothing is random. They have a GPS on them. They track their steps. They see how much effort they put into something. If someone's walking in the field too much, they see all of that and it goes to a computer. So the idea is kind of the same here, where I can see the notes, right, that I'm playing. I can see where on the piano I'm playing. If I'm playing mostly on the bass notes and not necessarily up on top, then I can then adjust for that and see how with each session I'm adapting and I'm using more of my keyboard. right? And so this is more currently, it's more for playing with you playing with chords, the piano using chords, and not necessarily as much with sheet music, right? Because everything's pretty standard in that, but using chords and then also improvising, and that is what it's geared towards in the current iteration that I'm going to attempt. And so the last feature that I would like to implement is also a built-in piano recording feature where you can connect your camera and your piano, and it would output a video without having to go into video editing software, right? So it would kind of be like a webcam type of thing, and you would connect your keyboard to your computer, and it would output a video. And that's something I have not attempted or looked into, so I'll see the feasibility of that. But I believe that to be something super useful for educators and teachers, right? People who are teaching music, then they don't have to deal with all the video editing, and if they do, it'll be very light, right? Because they don't have to sync it up anymore. So one of my targets would then be to try and reach teachers first. And the reason I would try to reach teachers first would be because of their network. So real quick, say that this is a teacher, right? They usually have multiple, if we think about it as nodes on a tree, then they usually have many connections, and that could be their students, that could be their viewers, or any other thing, any other person in their network, right? Viewers for Instagram or their social media, and obviously their students. So it would, if they use this software, it could expose to it to other people as well. So that's the current idea I'm thinking of. And then when I adopt ideas I hold strongly to, I also like to question and look for the opposite. An example is for the people I'm getting a lot of my business advice, the person I'm getting a lot of my business advice from, which is Alex Hermosi. So I've tried to look for videos debunking him, and I was pretty okay with what I saw. Another example, say, is the music learning industry. So is it going up or is it going down? And so take a hard look at that. And especially now with the AI taking over everything, is it going to go up or is it going to go down? The counter example I have for that is that chess is now super popular, but it's one of the first things that people were trying to automate, right? With AI and machine learning, it was one of the first things people were trying to overcome. And so now the best humans, or the best people, are easily beaten by the chess engines, right? So I believe that also humans will still, well, I also believe instruments will still be played by humans, or they will still want to learn the instruments. And with the minimal research I've done, it seems that the trend of the music learning industry does seem to be going up. So I'm also looking at the idea of how open to be about this project, because I saw videos for building in public and then videos going against building in public, and it made me aware of some of the dangers, right? There are a lot of one-way doors. For example, having a child, people can steal your not steal your child, but there are a lot of one-way doors, and one of the examples is having a child. You can't unhave a child once you have it, for the most part, pretty much, right? And so in sharing stuff, people can also steal your ideas. Once you put things out there, you can't unpost them, right, from the internet. They're pretty much there forever. Another downside I can see is by posting things, is you can lower your trust by saying that you are going to do things and then not doing them, not committing to them. So I want to avoid the idea, right, of being ensnared by your own tongue. And what I am 100% sure of is documenting the journey and documenting the steps. So if I change my mind later and I documented whatever, then I could delete it. Where I do now have the issue is with the level of privacy I want to share with the internet and other people because of the consequences I mentioned previously. So now I'll talk about what I've done currently so far. I've done the authentication in the back end, right? In coding, there's the back end, and then there's the front end. The front end is what people see, back end is the logic. So I've done the authentication, which is the login, password, the basic database. And I've opened up the social media accounts. I've opened up a bank account and registered this project, right? And then I built a time tracker as well that keeps track of my sessions spent on this project with the Raspberry Pi, some buttons, and some wires, and then I tunneled it to the internet so I can now see how much time and then info on what I'm doing. Say if something is non-technical versus something technical. For example, this is non-technical, so I could keep track of where I'm spending my time. And so now onto the to-dos. Obviously there are infinite number of to-dos, but some of the most basic would be to continue to document, right? Continue to document and so I can keep track of the progress I'm making. Also, I need to make it concise what this product is, and that is something that I think I'll have to work on continuously, because I don't know if it's just me, but it's kind of a little bit hard to understand. So I have to try and as good as possible to make a one sentence statement that is easy to understand what this is, what this project is. So now that I have the back end, I also want to build a basic front end, which is where everything will live. And then I'll also make sure that the framework is, the foundation is correct, right? Because if you build for what I'm thinking, if I build a, say, a janky foundation for the piano model and how all of the information will be tracked, it'll be hard in the future to add new features. So another thing that I'm thinking of that I'll have to dive deep in is onboarding. And I've seen that a lot of the most successful apps have a pretty long onboarding. I think like Duolingo has 75 pages or so. So it was pretty crazy, something pretty crazy like that. And all the finance apps also have something, a lot of onboarding steps, but it just there's a lot of things right that you can do right there. And again, the first impressions are very important. So after that, well, the next thing I want to do is also get it on a server and set it up with a port, forwarding, Docker, etc. Right? So pay for the server and then get it live on the internet. And then I have to create the landing page. What I'm planning to do is have AI build it at first, and then go ahead and think it through and then build it, code it out myself. Right? And then I have to connect to Stripe or some way to process payments and subscriptions. So, as Alex Hermosi says, right, he says that in order to have a business, there are some basic components, which are to, for example, have a way to accept payments, have an LLC to open a bank account, right? Provide a service, and then let people know about your business, right? So those are the basic requirements that you need to have a business, and those are the ones that I'm trying to get towards. So another thing I've heard is when people say the phrase build fast and break things, or I think that was the motto for Facebook, but I'm thinking of approaching things differently. And why am I doing this? Why am I going against the advice of a billionaire, right? And from personally, I think that since I'm not going for investment, I'm not going, and it's pretty much bootstrapped, I want to stick to the idea that if things suck, you just want enough people to know about your product to keep the lights on, right? That seems kind of counterintuitive. You want as many people to know about your product, but if things suck, then you want as little or as few people to know about your product while you make it better, right? For example, a restaurant. If one little thing or one bad experience happens on the first visit, they may never come back for years or ever, right? So first impressions stick. Good word of mouth isn't the only thing that exists. There's also bad word of mouth, which tends to be what is most common, right? So my idea is to look premium. That's the goal that I'm going towards. I'm trying to also go strive towards the idea of having something being seamless and also building a good foundation. And why is a good foundation important? And kind of might necessarily not go as fast as you would like for certain things. And if you think about it this way, if you had, say, unlimited materials to build a structure, if you wanted to build that structure and you had a time limit of 5 minutes, then you would just, I guess, stack a couple things as tall as you can, right? But now, say you had a day, you would start, I guess, building a better base. So then you could start building, right, a little bit taller, right? I don't know, right? And then say if you had now a year or 10 years, then the way that you would go about things, your foundation would be different. And with your foundation being, why would your foundation now be different? Right? So if we put this as in another example, say you're in a race with someone, right? So you're going from point A to point B, right? The fastest way to get there might be to run, right? But say you have now another point, C. The fastest way to get here may be to now go grab the keys, get in the car, and then get to point C. Say this is like 5 miles out versus point B being like 50 feet, right? So the fastest way to get to point B may not necessarily be the fastest way to get to point C. So that is kind of the idea that I'm going towards. And the idea to do unscalable things at first, say to give all of the attention to the first customers, which is something I can do now that I'm very basically I have no customers. I can give them all my attention. It's something that's not scalable, but it's something I can do, and that may give you a better return. You also give a better experience to the first people. You get reviews, and then personally, something now moving on to something else. Something that I've noticed that when I work my best with is when I get enough sleep. And when I get enough sleep, I notice that my concentration goes up, particularly when I was reading this textbook, and I was just going through it so easy, right? And then I compared that to back in school, where sometimes I would read a textbook and then my eyes would be heavy and they would want to close. And then I was just thinking, today or last night I slept so well, and now the concentration is like there 100%. And a side tangent, for some reason, when I'm getting close to being sleepy or when I'm sleepy, I sometimes tend to be really creative. Like I think of stuff, I can see something really random. I can see like shapes in the carpet or stuff, right? The things that I would not think of if I was more awake, or ideas that come when I'm super sleepy, right? Wanting to fall asleep about this little project, this project that I have, right? So that's kind of a side tangent, but I've noticed that I can be more creative when I'm kind of about to, I'm wanting to fall asleep. But aside from that, I've been reading the Offers book from Alex Hermosi. I've also been reading Learning Python. When I encounter something that I don't necessarily have a lot of confidence in, there is kind of another layer that a textbook gives you, and then extra context that a textbook gives you that AI doesn't necessarily give you. But AI is obviously a great tool, and something that I'm doing that can be detrimental is I'm hand coding stuff, half hand coding stuff, right? So I use AI, right, to give me examples, and then I kind of copy it in by hand coding it, and then I kind of understand what's going on. So obviously there is a massive downside to this, which is speed. And then everyone with a startup and with a project knows that speed is very important. Right, so that's something that I've kept in mind. But also an upside that is that I understand what I'm implementing, what I'm adding for the future. Say in the future I can understand or think back to the my implementation. And I've also caught things the AI wanted to do that I've wanted to tweak, even though for the most part it's correct. But because of those little things, I think for now and as I'm learning and as I'm building a foundation, it's been very helpful for me. I've also seen multiple videos on advice for me to shortcut everything here in this project and these learning lessons. So that's some of the things I've been doing. And I thank you for listening to the very first episode, and hopefully there's more to come, more lessons, more progress, and more findings to come, and I'll keep documenting it here. So thank you.